just brotherly love, brotherly love. After an hour and a half, I can't.
I'm Mary Irene. Nice to finally meet you.
Well, we have no choice.
Right, we have.
How you doing? 1 second. Look at those lips.
We only see the one behind you.
Okay.
You're incredibly confident in your abilities, but have you ever heard of this thing called imposter syndrome?
Now that you explained it to me, I had the wrong definition of imposter. Okay. Some days I think I'm the best in the world, and other days you feel, you're not that. I think that's a very normal reaction, okay? And I should add something to that question. And one point I should add is that, a lot of people, most people don't really know that much about photography, okay, on a deep level,
Do you think, because you have like 50 odd years of your eye now, you think that when you're making the frame and looking at something, you're probably including things that you don't even realize you're including, but you actually, they're part.
Yeah, of course. You see, but this now we jump to something else. New York City, or urban environments like New York that have, tall buildings, light, shadow, are much harder to work in than when you're working at the beach or you're doing a portrait, okay? But my ex-assistant, who was quite intelligent and a good photographer also, he said to me, because I always thought the portraits are quite easy, and maybe easy is not the right word, but he said, no, you should do a video of showing people where you start with that person in many instances. Sometimes you get the shot in the first picture, that's it. And I don't have a lot of time on the street with a person because, they're doing their everyday and I'm just asking them, can I take your picture? But let's say we're there 5 minutes or something and I take 10 pictures. You should see where you start and where you finish because I know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that intensity in the eyes. I'm looking for something, and some people don't have it. They can't give it to you. So you know right away, okay, let's go. Thank you very much. You're beautiful. Okay, we go on to the next person. But I could go to the state fair in Minnesota. Let's say there are 200,000 people. I do 6 portraits. I mean, they're really controlled. What I mean, I need something from them. I know what I'm showing, and I'm trying to show that the face project started with people who I thought were left behind, but then I realized a lot of people, not in all the cases, not the farm kids or whatever, but certain other people that I photograph, I find that they're invisible to people. So I wanted to show that there are people like this, don't turn your back on them. And by making, large, beautiful prints that are elegant and beautifully formed and have an intensity, that's my way of having people look at them,
When you said that when I look at a face, I see a roadmap. Yes. So, you're really a physiognomist, if there is such a thing.
I've also, and in respect to that, I've also learned a lot from doing the portrait series. Now, it's not only I look at a face and I see a roadmap, but I can see if I want to take a picture of you, because sometimes some people have the bone structure that goes over the eyes, so it covers up the eyes, the shape of the face. Like your face would be a little more difficult for me because it's a little bit narrow. Right. So I process all of this. I learn, you go in with an idea and you don't know how successful you're going to be doing that idea, bring it to fruition, okay? But I also learn what helps make a stronger picture, because just because someone has intense eyes, that doesn't mean I'm going to get a good picture there. I have to be attracted to something, okay? And when I was a kid, I always liked the underdog. Since I wanted to be a boxer, I was always watching boxing on television. And I always, almost in all cases, I rooted for the underdog. So I always felt of myself, I guess, as an underdog, innately. So to this day, I'm still an underdog.
we'll continue on the, close-up faces that you've been doing, which are really amazing. How far into their story do you go? You know what I mean? The details of their lives.
I don't ask. Well, that's
don't
not
ask.
true. With the prostitutes, I don't call them sex workers because I know the word, as a child I was a prostitute, so I'm not going to change my language because, it's politically correct to be a sex worker. To me, they're still prostitutes. They still do the same job. Who gives a f*** what you call them, okay? They're still out there. People don't care. And I interview them. In this instance, I interviewed them. I asked them, how did you come to this? And I hear all the stories. I'm not going to get into them. We do quick interviews. But I also have learned one thing, and I reiterate this to my wife all the time, because she was a journalist at Libération in France, and is that, when you interview someone, anyone can tell you anything. I mean, how do you know it's fucking true? I mean, I don't believe everything that everybody tells me. But the interesting thing with the women I photographed, mostly drug addicts, okay, is they all almost, I'm not going to get into it, but they all almost said the same thing. So there was truth to a lot of what they said. And that's how I have an idea that they're not running a game on me, and telling me something, okay? But I'm pretty firm with them. I tell them, you do what you want. I think you're, going up the wrong path. I said, I used to do drugs myself. It's a nowhere street, okay? So it's up to you. I'm not proselytizing, And it's interesting because one of my good pictures was of a girl called Texas, who was so nice. And the first time I saw her, she was sitting under the overpass in Overtown in Miami, and she was just sitting there. We were in the car, because I drive through to see if I want to get out and photograph someone. And she was sitting there just putting makeup on, putting makeup on all over her face with a very colorful makeup box. And then we saw her walking away, and we stopped. I talked to her, and I still remember something she said to me. I said, you should stop this. She says, I'll stop when I'm ready. She OD'd the next year, Yeah. I mean, and I really liked her.
Sort of in defense of some of those maybe broken women, you said, if you care about women, you should care about all women.
That's right.
So these women are invisible, and so you're giving them a moment in the light, I guess.
Well, it goes a little deeper than that if you know about my past, which I don't want to get into, but...
Yeah, but we all work from our own...
Yeah, but I mean,
families.
It's much, that's right, our own family, and it relates to that, to my family, okay?
Yeah.
So when people criticize that, do they know what they're really talking about? It's like Kudelka said to me, when I said something to him, he said, do you walk in my shoes? And these people don't walk in my shoes. So a sidebar to that is ever since I was 5 years old, I always was fascinated by the strangest wrestler. I wanted a monkey, I wanted to play the drums. I mean, it's always these things that are not your average person would want to do. And when I wanted to be a boxer, and my father was a racketeer type, and he didn't want me to be a boxer to get my brains knocked out. So instead I got into fights on the street and got my brains knocked out anyway. But the thing is, to me, that's who I am. It's not like, I'm not like, I don't want to mention any names, but I'm not like some other famous photographers that, they're fascinated by these people. I'm an insider. I mean, that was my life. I mean, my father had a pinky ring, cigar, gray hair, Cadillacs. He was probably a third grade education. My house was a mess. I mean, if you knew what went on in my house, you'd be amazed that I'm successful. I could have wound up being...
so
murdering
you think
somebody.
that helped you to sort of integrate yourself into these certain groups like the
Yeah, because I
Cruiser in
learned to be
Japan
truthful. I don't lie to people. My father was a very big, he could sell you the Brooklyn Bridge, and he wound up totally broke and everything, and, had no money at all. But he was very clever, very charming in a mafiosa sort of way, you know, not educated, but, you know, and he was fearless. So I inherited some of that from him, but I also inherited that I'm very truthful to myself. And, you know, people can say a lot of things about me. It just goes off my skin. I don't care. People know with what they feel about what they feel. That doesn't make it right or correct or accurate, let's just say, all right? In that instance, you know, when they give me shit for photographing these kind of people, like, you know, you shouldn't photograph them, you're disturbing them. I find that people like this are much more open to be photographed. And I'm not only talking, I'm talking about people who've had their face burned, a lot of things, okay? And when you look at people, when people look at these people from the outside, they say, how can you ask them? But they're actually, they're average people, you know, behind all of that, you know, whatever's happened to them. And if you go about it the right way and they feel, you know, like, here, I'll give you an example, switching off, okay? You're getting all this chunky information here. I don't know if it's worth it. You know, I should do this for my own fucking film. So the thing is, there was a guy with a burned face, really totally face burnt in Britain. And I don't really like to ask people, can I photograph them? So I try to point it off at the people I'm with to go over there. Because I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. It's just, I'm basically shy, you know, when it comes to that. And so I said to the guy I was with who was helping me on the project, and he says, I can't go over and ask him. So I said, look, the guy's got 3 daughters who are very pretty. They were young, you know, anyway, I don't remember, 7 to 12 or something like that. I mean, the guy's out in public with them. He's well adjusted. I went over to him, I said, because he wasn't going to do it, I said, can I photograph your face? He said, yes, and I have a portrait of him. I was honest with him. He knows what he looks like. I know what he looks like. And it wasn't that the face was burned necessarily. There was something that I felt that would make, because, you know, if you have, I can go in a room and there'll be 100 people that people will say, oh, Bruce is going to photograph them. And there's only 1 or 2 or 3 of the 100 that I would. Because there's something beyond, you know, everything has to, the stars have to align, okay, in my head. So
I love the idea, Bruce, that the stars are aligning in your head.
the first time I said it, I probably forget it in 3 seconds. But no, there's something that it's like doing the portraits. You know, rarely you come across someone, you know, once they say yes, you have a good picture. On that project, there was a lady in Ilford, and I knew all she had to do was say yes. And she said, yes, I have a very good portrait, okay, a black and white, it's a really good portrait, I knew it. But generally that's not the case. You hope that you get a good one, you know what I mean? You are anticipating that it will look good.
But what's your percentage with that, with faces and
Well,
going
it
to the
depends
people?
where you're talking. You're talking about ones that are going to be in a show, it's not very high, but it's not that low, excuse me, because I don't ask that many people to take their picture. Like, if I go somewhere, let's say specifically, let's say farm boys, farm girls, which was probably a higher ratio because I'm just doing farm boys and farm girls, and that's it. I'm figuring out, I'd say maybe 10, 20%. Not killers, but, and I shouldn't use the word killer, they'll kill me for that. You know, ones that I think are really unbelievable. And I don't mean them using the word killer.
You got to stop self-censoring, you know, just...
Okay, killers. Okay. But that's the one where I know all I have to do is take the picture.
Okay. And what was Naples like?
Why I went there, because Leica was gracious enough to fund the project, so it gave me an opportunity to go somewhere where I wanted to go, okay? It wasn't like, I did a project in Korea because they were willing. I did Fishermen in Korea, which turned out to be very good, and it was very interesting for me. But I had no inclination, desire. I had no desire to go to Korea to do that project. Italy is a place, not only from seeing the old humanist films of the 40s, you know, De Sica, Rossellini, all of those, which I'm a fan of, okay? So, and they're all in black and white. That's why I said I'm going to go to this traditional country and do it. But ultimately, the pictures are about me. I photograph myself, okay? So I'm looking for people, like, look at their faces. Look at her. Look at that one. I mean, look at her. I mean, it's not happy. You know, it's like people lost in thoughts. They're walking through the city, they're not paying attention, and this is how they look, and this is the face they present to the world, at least one of the faces they present to the world. So I'm not one that does smiling pictures, okay, of people. It's rare, okay? It's not what I'm looking for. Okay, it's my take on the world, but again, I think it's much more truthful, my pictures, than, you know, someone once said to me, he said, this guy who is a humanist photographer,
Yeah.
from New York, he said, oh, the guy would come to a place, the kid would get dressed up in his Sunday best. He said, is that a real portrait of the person? No, it isn't. Is that his day-to-day life? And to me, you know, I can deal with, the picture this guy was talking about is a good picture. But he made a very interesting point. Do you want to see, you know, this special occasion, or do you want to see everyday life? Now, I'm sure maybe this lady in 5 minutes later could be smiling, you know, it could be fine. But to me, I wouldn't take the picture. But if you notice, the picture is very well formed.
Yeah.
Luckily, her head is in between the two buildings.
Yeah.
So you see, to me, if she just had that look and the picture wasn't well formed, it wouldn't be a good picture. You have to, you know, this one here is a little different, okay? But it's still well formed. And to me, when I said that statement, the people there were quite receptive. Hardly anyone got upset, you know, and I have a pretty good bedside manner, so I get more upset when people are taking a picture of me from 30 feet away, because then you're sneaking. At least, sometimes I'm
Right.
so close, people don't even realize I'm taking their picture. But to me, I'm open about it. I'm not doing it. I'm doing it because I want to do it. I find something interesting there. It's not commercially. It's not I'm doing it to sell it or anything.
This one especially looks like could be a photograph of an actor as well. You know.
Yeah, it's a movie. I was very influenced by film noir. You know,
But isn't it like, it's also kind of Fellini a little bit, no?
well, you want to call Fellini, you can call it anything.
I wanted to drag Fellini in, but the
Well,
last time you
drag him,
kicked
and I
it to
liked
the
his-
curb.
I liked his earlier films. I didn't like his later films so much, and then it became a little bit too much for me, you know, too over the top.
Yeah.
But he was one of the directors I like.
I think, I mean, I see the affinity between you and him just in terms of the kind of faces he chose.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Characters.
I was attracted to Fellini films. I mean, I would have probably been a documentary filmmaker, but I couldn't make money in photography. So how the hell am I? Especially in those days when you had to use film, how am I going to even afford it? And I don't think I would have liked working with a lot of people on something and have them, you know, having to
Be the director, you
adhere to
mean?
what they want to do at the end, you know, because they put up some money or what have you. You know, I'm not.
Does that happen to you in when you do the commercial work? That you have to, you know, answer to the 5 accountants who are watching the little
It happened
video
to me
screens?
once, and I really got mad. I mean, when you do commercial work, like I've done Balenciaga, I've done Dolce & Gabbana, I've done the lookbook for Gucci, so I know who I'm working for, I know what they're interested in, okay? So of course, if they say to me, we want a full length like that, okay, I give them that, all right? But the structure's basically the same, and when I do a lot of editorial work in fashion, my pictures are basically the same. I have a sense of humor. Sometimes it goes a little beyond that, okay? And I had one instance a couple years ago where they didn't want to publish that picture. It was a picture I took in Brooklyn. I'm not going to get into what it was. It was the model and someone I picked on the street. And I said to them, you're going to have to run that picture, otherwise you don't run any of the pictures at all.
Okay, can you discuss your approach to long-term projects versus spontaneous street?
Yeah, well, look, my first book, Facing New York, was all spontaneous street, okay, but it's a long-term project. I decided to photograph in New York City, first of all, because I lived here. I needed something where I can go out every day. And the other thing is, I'm a big fan of long-term projects because obviously you should choose a long-term project because you're interested in doing that project, okay? So, like when I go out, I know right away if that street's good for me or it isn't. I make quick decisions. But the beauty of the long-term project is it gives you the capacity to go back and improve upon what you've done. And if you like photographing there, why not go back? You know, because anybody can take one half-decent picture or one maybe picture of genius, but you want to add layers and layers and layers and do more pictures. And I also find that generally the first time I've been somewhere, the first day, not so much on these 8-day trips, but my pictures get stronger because I learn, you know, okay, that looks all right, so that gives me the impetus to continue the project. But ultimately, it's not, those pictures generally don't wind up in the end product. Generally. Street photography is probably the hardest form of, if you do it the way I do it, or even if you don't, there are so many things physically that you have to deal with. I don't mean physically yourself, I mean in your frame. The buildings, the light, the shadow, people crossing, you know, in large city areas, it's really hard.
So how do you deal with that now? Do you just, you know, you shrink the activity?
Well, I work closer, probably even closer.
Yeah.
You know, because the first thing, when I started photography, the quote that struck me, this is before I knew what I really wanted to do, was when I read Robert Capa, if it's not good enough, you're not close enough. So to me, that's always been my mantra. And it's funny, sometimes I've taken pictures of something a little further away that's not bad. You know, it's formed well enough, and then I moved in a little more, and it was better. So to me, it's always been that way. Yeah. So I like film noir, I like flash, you know. I don't understand. Some people have said, you know, you can't use artificial lights. I mean, why can't you? Who said you can't? When I was growing up, there was a big, growing up, I mean, I'm talking about photographically, okay? When I started photography, they used to say, oh, Walker Evans. I'm not debating whether he's a good photographer or not, okay? That's up to whoever, you know, likes him or doesn't like him, but they would say, he did objective photography. Why the f*** did he do objective photography? He decided who he's photographing, where he's going to stand. You know, he decided everything. That's subjective to me. So, to me, I decided to use, in many instances, artificial light. That's my choice. I mean, I'm allowed to do that. I had one guy tell me, a well-known person, you're too good to use flash. The f*** are you talking about? I'm too good to use flash? I mean, to me, this is incredulous. I don't care what you do. If you get a good picture, it's fine. Do I ask when you write, do you write in your underwear? I mean, I don't know what you do when you write. I have no idea, but what do I care?
How do you know that, by the way?
I have a little peephole that goes into your apartment.
What are some of the biggest challenges you faced in your career? And how did you overcome them?
Well, no, the biggest challenge in my career, there are two. One was obviously in the beginning that continues all the way through, which I'm sure you can relate to, and it's financial. I mean, how do you get the f***ing money to do the projects you want to do? I mean, I can imagine eating my heart out, you know, because I couldn't go to Haiti because I didn't have the money. And, you know, there's a time I wanted to be there. I mean, you suffer if you care about what you do, okay? And that's always been a factor, okay? And then you say to yourself, well, look how much money they'll spend doing shit pictures or shit people or mediocre people, and they won't give you the money to go here or do this or do that, okay? And that hurts. But it gives you the impetus to go on if you're strong enough because, you know, That's right. The blows you take determine how strong you are ultimately. And the other thing is criticism. Okay, I'm tough. Okay, you're not going to beat me. Okay, mentally, you will not beat me mentally. I can put up with anything you give me. But I find, a lot of people, they really don't know what they're talking about when they criticize my work, okay? And I understand people not liking it. That's fine. But don't, write all this bullshit about me that you don't know what you're talking about.
But if I can interrupt that, Bruce, there's the dichotomy for me. You are tough, it bounces off you, but at the same time, you read this shit and you're
I don't look
affected
at
by it
anything
in a way.
I don't look at anything on social media. The only thing I read is, and my wife tells me, lucky you don't, Bruce, because you would hit the roof.
No, I'm sorry. The only point I was trying to make with that was, you get a little criticism. I don't think you get very much criticism personally, but
I got plenty.
But you take note of it. But you've explained how you it's like energy for you. You turn the negative into the positive, and you're working. Yeah.
And the other thing is go back to what Kudelka said. You don't walk in my shoes. Do you know my past? I'm not saying you have to know my past, but you don't know my past. So just because I'm interested, you may be interested in God knows anything. So how did you come to that? I'm much purer than many other people. I believe I'm really pure because I'm blunt. I say what I feel. If you don't like it, I can't help it. But I'm not going to be. I'm going to say what I feel to a certain degree. Okay. I mean, you can't go overboard. Okay. Then everyone will go, "Wow, this guy's crazy."
Well, especially in this day and age, everything's so PC. So everyone's being careful about what they say, which I think is really stunting.
And that's why we're in this position we're in, because nobody wants to open their mouth about what they like or what they don't like. Because if they like something that's not popular, wow, you're looked at like, holy shit, you're ignorant. And that's not the case.
No.
You can only change it if you have a dialogue with someone who doesn't think like you. I mean, let's sit down. I can sit down with anyone and talk about what I feel and why I do what I do. I would welcome to have that opportunity.
But that's one of the things I admire about you. You can sit down with such a cast of characters, with like from bikers, how you got with the bikers there. That was during the COVID, right? And you just found that group of bikers, and then the next thing you know, you're partying with them. I don't know how you managed at your age to be partying. Have a little DMT,
I don't party, I'm just there.
DMT there.
I'm just there. And they can party.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. But I mean, that's you have this sort of.
It's a question of. And correct me if I'm wrong, because my wife corrects me all the time. Because I relate things that maybe shouldn't be related. But in photography, I like landscape work sometimes too. I can identify someone that just photographs trees because it's really good. It's not, I don't like just one kind of photography. So I think, to be fair, if someone does something well, you should at least have the capacity to say, well, he does it well. It's a question of this. I don't photograph things that I'm not interested in, okay, for myself. Mm-hmm. I never was close to bikers. I've had some incidents with certain bikers that weren't very good, in the past, where I was told, you better get out of here, okay?
Right.
But that didn't stop me because I wanted to photograph them. And I found a great group of people who I really enjoy, and I miss not seeing them. I haven't seen them too much recently because I was traveling, and also, to me, they become like my family. So if you're interested in something and you're real with them, I'm honest with them, you know what I mean? I don't bullshit them, okay?
Yeah, but they're obviously seeing something in you, to invite you into that environment, because people don't get invited into that.
The thing is, again, I'm comfortable with them. and people can sense when you're comfortable, and they also can sense certain things that I say, you know, in dialogue, that people would look at me and say, "You said that to them?"
What advice would you give to aspiring photographers looking to develop their own unique voice?
Be yourself. And to me, you know, I give a lot of workshops, and I used to take people out, and they saw how I worked, and they would come and they would do the flash, and then they would do that there. Some less successful, some more successful, depending on if they relate or they want to do pictures with flash or my kind of picture, okay? But then when they go home, they go back to do what they are most comfortable doing, whether they do it well or don't do it well. And I realized, wait a second, the trick is to be yourself. So that's the title of my workshop, Be Yourself. And I try to give you an assignment that'll help you be yourself, stronger, or maybe if I think you should go a little different direction, we'll do that. And I ask them, are you comfortable in doing this? Are you know, I don't expect them to put a flash in people's face if they can't do it, okay, or to get close to people if that's not who they are. So I think the key is, and I've seen other people who are quite well known and good photographers give workshops, and then almost everybody in their class is little versions of themselves for that week. That's bullshit, okay? You want to deal with the person, or you want to make little versions of yourself for 1 week and then they come back. I had a guy visit me from Europe, and this guy happened to do very good portraits. When I started to give portrait assignments to certain people, he did really good, no flash, in some department store in England or somewhere. And they were his pictures, very good. So he came, and I said, he came a year later, and he has no more portraits. He did his usual, they were not very good pictures. I don't remember what they were, but they weren't very good. So I said, why don't you do some portraits? And he told me, I don't remember what he said, but he wasn't doing them. I said, why don't you at least do it once a week? He did it very well, but you know, it's not who he is. So, and people tend to emulate people who are famous, you know, or well-known or more well-known than them, or whose work they admire. And the other thing I found out, a lot of people take tons of workshops with every different kind of photographer. You know, he does landscape, he does this, he does that. And how can you know who the hell you are? I mean, I said you're wasting your money, you know, but, you know, what can you say?
So be yourself is your watchword.
That's right. We could have just stopped at Be Yourself, you know.
Let's roll on cameras.
These are all Napoli, right?
Yeah, let's roll.
Yeah, these are all Napoli.
Camera speeds.
I wasn't sure if you were going to do like me.
What's one thing you want people to know about Bruce Gilden?
Well, I guess what sums it up best is Shomei Tomatsu, the now passed away Japanese photographer, said, if I lived 7 lifetimes, I would be a photographer in every one. It's such a beautiful comment. And it's funny, he made that comment in a book that he did, that he gave me when I met him a few times. We had lunch and dinner in Tokyo. Well, outside Tokyo, he lived outside Tokyo. And I didn't even remember it, and Sophie came up with it because she was looking through the book. And I said, wow, that's great. And another thing I should say is a comment that I like very much by Robert Frank.
Okay.
It's important to see what's invisible to the others.
Bruce, that was great, by the way.
I think we did
You
well.
are so
You did
fucking
well.
eloquent.
Well, I'm as good as how you are. If I'm comfortable with you, you know, I'm blunt, I'm honest. As honest as I can be.
Get it up.
No, you're honest. It's inspiring.
Well,
I wish I could be as honest as you are.
you are in the writing.
Yeah, hopefully.
That's why I like your writing. All right, thank you.
Yeah, a pleasure.
Thank you. My pleasure. Okay. Oh, that's it. Thanks. What a producer we got here. Oh, shit.
How are we doing? Do you like the questions so far?
Yeah, fine. Do you like the answers?
I love the answers.